What if your trusted life partner, the one you share your morning coffee with, turns out to be your worst nightmare? Welcome to the chilling case of James Craig, a Colorado dentist accused of poisoning his wife, Angela Craig. In the picturesque city of Aurora, Colorado, James Craig was not just a dentist, but a respected member of the community. He was happily married to Angela Craig, and together they were raising their 6 children. Life seemed picture-perfect until Angela started feeling unwell on the 6th of March, 2023. The subsequent 2 weeks were a whirlwind of hospital visits. Angela's condition worsened rapidly, and by March 15th, she was on life support. 3 days later, Angela was no longer with us. The sudden passing of Angela Craig left the community in shock. But what happened next was even more astounding. Within hours of Angela's death, James Craig was charged with first-degree murder. The accusations sent shockwaves through their circle, leaving friends, family, and the wider community struggling to reconcile the image of James Craig, the friendly neighborhood dentist, with that of a cold-blooded murderer. Despite the charges, James maintained his innocence, pleading not guilty to the crime. Meanwhile, Angela's autopsy revealed a chilling fact. She had been poisoned. The police were confident that the evidence pointed straight to her husband. They claimed that James had made online searches about poisons, specifically potassium cyanide and arsenic, prior to Angela's death. The police alleged that James had even gone as far as lacing Angela's protein shakes with these deadly substances. With this revelation, the case took a dark turn. The man who was once a respected figure in the community was now the prime suspect in a horrifying murder investigation. But the question looms, did James Craig really poison his wife's protein shakes? Let's delve deeper into the unsettling evidence pointing to James Craig. The Colorado dentist, known for his warm smiles and gentle hands, now stands accused of a chilling crime. The evidence paints a grim picture of a man who may have meticulously planned his wife's murder. The authorities allege that James Craig had been conducting suspicious online searches about poison. A simple query into a search engine, "How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human?" is now a haunting echo of a possible sinister intent. But the digital breadcrumbs did not stop there. Alongside these ominous searches, James Craig had also made purchases of potassium cyanide and arsenic. These toxic substances, known for their lethal potential, were ominously linked to his internet activity. The timing of these purchases, coinciding with his wife's illness, only served to deepen the suspicion. The authorities are convinced that James Craig didn't just acquire these deadly substances but used them in a chilling manner. They believe he administered the poison through Angela's protein shakes. It's an unsettling thought, a loving husband turning a daily routine into a deadly weapon. It's a betrayal that transforms the image of James Craig from a caring spouse to a possible cold-blooded killer. But let's not rush to judgment. As damning as the evidence may appear, there are still questions to be answered. Could there be another explanation for these purchases? Could the police have made a hasty arrest, driven by the need for swift justice rather than thorough investigation? But could all this be a misunderstanding or a hasty accusation? We must remember that in our quest for truth, we owe it to both Angela and James Craig to be thorough, fair, and unprejudiced. As we dig deeper into this case, we may yet uncover facts that could shift our perception. After all, the truth, much like a dental procedure, often involves layers that need to be peeled away before the core is revealed. 3 days. That's how long it took police to charge James with his wife's murder. A swift move that has raised questions and eyebrows. Sky Lazaro, a legal expert, argues that the investigation was rushed, implying that the police were too quick to pin the blame on James. The case pivots on the accusation that James poisoned his wife's protein shakes, a claim that the defense is prepared to challenge. Lazaro asserts that the evidence presented so far does not conclusively prove that the poison was indeed in the drink. This gap in the prosecution's case may be the lifeline that James's defense needs to cast a shadow of doubt. Now let's delve a little deeper into James's past. His defense team has brought to light his history of depression, an angle they might leverage to argue that the purchased poison was intended not for Angela, but for James himself, a potential suicide attempt rather than a murder plot. However, this theory brings more questions than answers. Why did James search for the lethal dose of arsenic for a human? Could he have been contemplating a double suicide, or is this a clever deflection by his defense team? On one hand, we have a seemingly rushed investigation and an absence of solid evidence tying the poison to the protein shakes. On the other, we have a man with a history of depression who bought poison around the time his wife fell ill. The defense's argument of a rushed investigation could be a game changer, potentially turning the tide in James's favor. But is it enough to counter the weight of the allegations against him? Could the police have jumped to conclusions too soon? Only time will tell as the case unfolds. But what about the poisoned protein shakes, the alleged murder weapon? The defense argues that the prosecution has yet to provide substantial evidence proving that the poison was actually in Angela's drinks. It's a contention that certainly raises eyebrows and questions. Now, consider this. The autopsy did confirm Angela had been poisoned with a lethal cocktail of potassium cyanide and arsenic. But was it really in her protein shakes? The defense argues that the authorities have been quick to connect these dots, perhaps too quick. Sky Lazaro, an attorney well-versed in such cases, argues that the state hasn't presented any evidence that the poison was actually in Angela's drinks. She points out that the police investigation, which led to James Craig's arrest, lasted only 3 days. She suggests that this might have been a rushed conclusion, a hasty attempt to close the case. The defense also brings up another argument, a twist in the tale. They contend that James Craig, with a history of depression, had not bought the poison to harm Angela, but rather to harm himself. It's a claim that adds another layer of complexity to an already convoluted case. So, we're left with a myriad of questions. Was the poison really in the protein shakes? Did James Craig, a man who seemed to have a perfect life with his wife, actually plot her murder? Or was he contemplating self-harm? The defense's arguments present a strong counter-narrative, challenging the prosecution's case and putting the spotlight on the lack of direct evidence linking the poison to Angela's drinks. It's a critical point, one that could potentially make or break the case. Is there a crucial missing link in this puzzling case? The answer lies in the evidence yet to be revealed, the witness testimonies yet to be heard, and the verdict that is yet to be delivered. Angela Craig's death sent shockwaves through Aurora, and the community is still reeling from the news. This was not just a local tragedy. It was a cataclysm that shattered the illusion of suburban tranquility. The story of Angela's untimely demise and the subsequent arrest of her husband, James Craig, quickly became a sensation, catapulting this small-town mystery onto the national stage. The community was left grappling with a slew of unanswered questions and a profound sense of loss. Angela was more than a local resident. She was a mother, a friend, a beacon of the community. Her absence left a void that could not easily be filled. As the news spread, public interest in the case grew exponentially. The story was picked up by various media outlets, but it was the voice of former radio personality Stephen Tubbs that resonated most deeply with listeners. His podcast, Arsenic DDS, became a focal point for those seeking to understand the perplexing case. Tubbs's in-depth coverage painted a vivid picture of the events leading up to Angela's death, and his heartfelt condolences to her friends and family only served to underscore the gravity of the situation. Listeners from around the world tuned in, their fascination tinged with a sense of morbid curiosity. The narrative of a well-respected dentist accused of poisoning his wife was as captivating as it was horrifying. Yet, despite the media frenzy, the community remained divided. Some adamantly believed in James Craig's guilt, pointing to the damning evidence presented by the police. Others, however, were not so quick to condemn. They clung to the image of the perfect couple, unable to reconcile it with the monstrous act James was accused of. As the dust settled, one thing became clear. Angela's death had forever changed the landscape of Aurora. The community was left to pick up the pieces, struggling to come to terms with the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. But the question remains, did James Craig murder his wife, or is he a victim of circumstances? James and Angela Craig, a seemingly perfect couple, but was it all a facade? From the outside looking in, they appeared to be two peas in a pod, a dynamic duo, working hand in hand at the Summerbrook dental office and raising 6 children together. To their friends and colleagues, like Chelsea Otoya, they were the epitome of marital bliss, always playing pranks on each other and sharing laughter. Yet beneath this picture-perfect image, a darker narrative was allegedly unfolding. Investigators claim that in the days leading up to Angela's untimely demise, James was reportedly researching poisons. The very idea is chilling, isn't it? A man of science, a healer by profession, delving into the lethal world of arsenic and potassium cyanide. The question that haunts us is, why? The arrest warrant alleges a Google search from James asking, how many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? An unsettling question, to say the least. Authorities believe that he took this a step further, lacing Angela's protein shakes with these deadly substances. But why would a man who seemingly had it all resort to such a heinous act? The shock of these allegations is amplified by the fact that the Craigs were seen as a close-knit pair. Their relationship, spanning over 2 decades, seemed unshakable to many. Chelsea Otoya recalls the heartbreak that swept over everyone when they learned of the accusations against James. It was incomprehensible, a cruel twist that no one saw coming. So, we're left with a perplexing question. Was this the perfect crime, meticulously planned and executed by a man well-versed in anatomy and chemistry? Or was it a tragic end to a perfect couple, a tale of love that spiraled into a dark abyss? As we delve deeper into this narrative, we'll continue to unravel the threads of this complex tapestry. So was it the perfect crime or a tragic end to a perfect couple? As James Craig awaits his day in court, the world watches with bated breath. The upcoming trial promises to be a clash of narratives, a battle of evidence, and a test of the justice system. On one hand, there's the defense, painting a picture of a man battling depression who might have procured the poison with the intention of harming himself, not his wife. They argue that the prosecution's evidence is circumstantial at best. They point out that the police rushed to arrest James Craig, barely giving themselves 3 days to investigate the case. They also argue that there's no definitive proof that the poison was indeed in Angela Craig's protein shakes, the alleged vehicle of the fatal dose. On the other side of the courtroom, there's the prosecution. They have a different story to tell. A story of a man who researched poisons, who allegedly ordered potassium cyanide and arsenic, and who they claim administered these deadly substances to his wife via her protein shakes. They present a narrative of a husband who, instead of protecting his wife, chose to take her life. The prosecution's case is built on the digital footprints left by James Craig, the suspicious purchases, and the chilling Google search. How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? They also have the testimony of podcaster Stephen Tubbs, who has been closely following the case and can testify to the public's shock and horror at the revelations. As the trial looms ahead, the stakes are high. For James Craig, it's a fight for his freedom and an attempt to clear his name. For Angela Craig's family and friends, it's a quest for justice, a plea for closure, and a hope that Angela's death was not in vain. The public, the media, the family, and the friends, everyone is awaiting the verdict with anxiety and anticipation. Will the defense's arguments hold up under scrutiny? Will the prosecution's evidence be enough to convince the jury of James Craig's guilt? Will justice be served for Angela Craig, or will James Craig be exonerated? Only time will tell.